Distinguished guests, family and friends of the class of 2022, members and friends of the COA community, a warm welcome to College of the Atlantic's commencement ceremony of 2022 on such a beautiful, glorious, late spring Maine day. My name is Beth Gardner, and I am the chair of the Board of Trustees of the College of the Atlantic. There are students graduating all over the United States now, from the West Coast to the East, from the borders of Canada to Mexico. But there is one thing that sets all of you apart from each of them. It's what I call a sense of place. It's right here, all around us. And what I mean by that is the power and the beauty of this very special island, and indeed the campus itself, and all that it represents. No other students completing their college careers now have that. They don't know what it's like to jump into the icy waters of Frenchman Bay, to have Acadia National Park at their beck and call, to spend their college years in an intensely focused, place-based institution with human ecology at its core. What's so exciting to me is that each of you will take away an impression of COA that is uniquely yours. A mix of the landscape, our wise faculty, our dedicated staff, your friends, the epiphanies that you've had while you've been here, and your sense of wonder of this very beautiful island and of this college that sits on the edge of the wide Atlantic. I invite you on your very last day, as you leave COA, to stop, take a breath, and take it all in. Your attachment and memories to this place may change over time as you make your way through your life. But what you have learned here, what you have seen, and the very important view of the world that it has given you, a knowledge that the world is an interconnected place where each of us and the natural world coexists, is very powerful. And I assure you, it is a sense of place that will last you through your entire life. I would now like to introduce President Darren Collins.
Hey, everyone. Good afternoon. Today, my role is to welcome people. Welcome. Especially all of the parents, grandparents like Jasper's amazing grandmother, family and friends. Thought you'd like that. My role is also to congratulate. Congratulations. But I also get to reflect. And it's our 50th year at COA. And I think there's no hiding behind the fact that it's been something of a bizarre, tough year, and one we'll never forget. Reflections, chapter 1, of blue notebooks and egos on the floor. In the fall of some distant year, a student start again. In the fall of some distant year, a student arrived at COA, full of spit and vinegar. Back then, all first-year students would be piled into the low-slung meeting hall that sat where the Gates Auditorium is now, and they'd take a writing examination. Students would receive a little blue notebook with widely spaced lines, a pencil, and a prompt to write an essay. They'd have 60 minutes to respond to the prompt, knowing they would be judged and placed into one of 3 writing classes based on their performance. Our student, like many 18-year-olds, was searching for their group and searching for a self, and found both of those things in their writing. And as such, they saw writing as a complete reflection of themselves. They also saw writing as something they'd mastered already. They had loads of swagger. And finishing the essay, they closed the tablet, put down the pencil, and said just barely under their breath, they're going to have to create a special, super advanced class for me. And I'll most certainly be asked to train all of the writing tutors. Well, the exams came back the next day in a pile, and the blue cover of our students' exam book was marked in purple ink with the words, "See me," circled in them. And again, the students said to themselves, "See, I told you so." I wonder how much they pay writing tutors. The student hopped up the stairs to the writing center and sat smugly across from Ann Kozak, who is apparently the writing expert on campus. And Ann turned to the student and said, "Darren, you have some real difficulty with your writing. And I'm very, very concerned. And I'm going to require that you sign up for a remedial writing tutorial with me and address some of these issues right away. I've never been put in my place so abruptly. Who is this woman with that funny New England accent? And how dare she suggest my writing is anything less than stellar?" So I was really, really mad. And then I was sad, and I might have called my mom. But eventually I was able to pick my ego up off of the floor and pull my tail from between my legs. And I spent the entire first year of College of the Atlantic doing all the hard, painful work that Ann asked of me. So this year was a year where this kind of self-awareness was challenged over and over, where the chinks in our armor were exposed and exploited, and where we seem to spend a lot of time picking our egos up off of the floor. Someday, I think we'll be able to look back and feel good about this process, but such work can be exhausting. There's a more practical side to this chapter. We all know that Pam Mitchell, Marie Stivers, and Ann Kozak will be retiring. And between them, there is 100 years of COA institutional knowledge and experience. And I'd ask for a round of the heartiest applause for these three amazing women. Paul Kozak, where's your mom? There she is. Okay, there's Ann. Sorry, she's right there. Yeah. So thousands of students have been through some version of my own story with Ann, hopefully not with the big chip on their shoulder. And Ann, in your honor, we're going to rename the Writing Center the Ann Kozak Center for Writing Excellence. Reflections, Chapter 2, of Barbed Wire and W.H. Auden. So I spent a few months one summer during high school building barbed wire fence in Chalice National Forest, Idaho. It was part of a program aimed at getting young people into the field of conservation, and more approximately, a program aimed at keeping cows out of the creeks. Our group of 6 teenagers was led by this guy from the wilds of Wisconsin named Harold Lindebo. And I took a shine to this guy. And he introduced me to Edward Abbey, deep ecology, discipline, the power of projects, and the rewards of very hard work. And Harold had this boundless energy for this and could squeeze history, philosophy, and ecology out of those sharp barbs that left all of our hands bloody. He vocalized all that history and philosophy through a thick Midwestern accent with "you betchas" and "you're darn tootin'." And our last week of the work, we switched from barbed wire to jack pole fence, And on one of the last days, I stood there for a long time just looking at this pile of logs. And Harold kind of like snuck up right on my right-hand side and he barked furiously, "Darren, what are you doing? Do you think the fence is going to build itself?" And I said, I don't know what to do. And I was mortified, a little scared. And Harold responded, "Darren, sometimes you just got to give it a go." And then he quoted W.H. Auden without skipping a beat. "The sense of danger must not disappear. The way is certainly both short and steep. However gradual it looks from here, look if you like, but you will have to leap." And sometimes you got to give it a go. Sometimes you got to leap. This year, I think we've done loads of leaping, having a go at things with a lack of knowledge and with unpredictable outcomes. And this kind of excellence can be great at building that resilience muscle. But such leaping can also be exhausting, I know. Reflections, chapter 3, last chapter, of schismogenesis and Nicki Minaj. You know the Dr. Seuss story, the Sneetches, right? Now, the star-bellied Sneetches had bellies with stars. The plain-bellied Sneetches had none upon theirs. The book is about the anthropological process of schismogenesis, about group identity formation and group differentiation. I've always preferred the rap artist Cardi B over Nicki Minaj. And there's a beef between these two artists, but I'm with Cardi B like 100%, 100%. Similarly, you either love the Beatles or you love the Stones. You love the Beatles for their consciousness of the whole world, maybe their association with a waxing British Empire, their cheerfulness among despair, their ability to write about things like the loss of their mother's early life. Or you find that really nerdy and you love the Rolling Stones and their snarl, their living in the moment, the way they embraced a Black American sound, their swagger with guitars slung impossibly low. Paul and John could never have written "Can't You Hear Me Knocking?" But Mick and Keith could never have written "Yesterday." You also find the schismogenesis among the 4 tribes of the Wabanaki. And I think it's important we recall and acknowledge that this ceremony is taking place on the summer hunting and fishing grounds of the Passamaquoddy people. But the Penobscot Nation also considers this part of their ancestral homeland. And the Maliseet very likely fished these waters right out there as well. Those tribal groups also differentiate linguistically and culturally. But we all need to recognize the difficult historical privilege we have in using and owning their lands. Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, Maliseet, and Micmac, all of whom are Wabanaki. My point here is that as natural as schismogenesis is, these years have been about sacrificing individuality and our common humanity in favor of groups. And this is exhausting and unproductive. So our exhaustion, conclusion, comes from the pandemic, from the global war, from a meltdown of democracy, from masking, from the turnover of staff and faculty, from hybrid classes, but it's also from this psychological distress of our self-awareness being challenged, of our egos on the floor, of leaping into the unknown, and especially of identity politics. You, graduates, are amazing. I stand here in awe of you and your work and how you've navigated this new frontier. And our hope for a better future is not naive because of your brilliance and the foundations you have and will continue to build. You won't do it alone. There are those before and after you that you should lean on. I look forward to crossing frontiers with you and doing so with self-awareness and humility, with leaps into the unknown and confident strides on solid footing. Crossing it singing Cardi B, but open generously to Nicki Minaj. Snarling defiantly with Mick, but smiling with John Lennon. I want to introduce Sadie Cooley to deliver the welcome on behalf of the class of 22. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren, for that warm welcome.
You're welcome, Sadie.
In preparing for this speech, I thought a lot about what it means to give a welcome, especially considering that this is the third welcome of the ceremony. I thought about what first made me welcome to COA, an email from Karen Waldron in which she articulated my current interests better than I could. The full moon reflecting off the Maine lakes on a late night flight from Boston to Bangor, and a story told to me by an upperclassman in the shuttle ride to the island about a winter evening so cold that walking from town to campus, she completely lost control of her bladder. I am happy to say that while Karen and the lakes have remained essential in my personal and continued welcome, I have yet to piss myself on even the coldest winter's day. I'd like to take this moment to extend gratitude on behalf of myself and my fellow students to all those who made us feel welcome in an environment that can be inherently selective in its welcome. There are many barriers to attending college: the application process, the cost of attendance, the travel and housing, the mental and emotional barriers unique to each individual and our experiences. I have often felt this community grapple with these barriers and questions of how to be welcoming over the past 4 years. What does it mean, for example, to talk about decolonization at COA when the foundations of the Western University are deeply entwined with colonial practices and ways of knowing? What does it mean for us to acknowledge that our college is located on unceded Wabanaki land and to still put ourselves in the position of welcoming you here? What does it mean to allow for the possibility of dissent, especially when consensus is often considered the ultimate goal? What does it mean to study the relationship between the human to its environment when only certain bodies of specific backgrounds are able to navigate this campus with ease? The possibility of welcoming or feeling welcomed is always haunted by the possibility of not welcoming or being welcomed. And I would like to thank the school for welcoming us despite, even because, we strive to be disruptive of its structures. It is through these conflicts and disagreements about what being welcoming means and how to go about it, among many other things, that has given me the education I came here for. And so I hope that as we, the class of 2022, but also all of you who are in attendance, go forward from this moment, we continue to think and discuss and act on what we believe it means to welcome and feel welcomed. Fellow students, staff, faculty, friends, family, and esteemed guests, welcome. I am now happy to bring to the stage Isidora Liliana Munoz Segovia, a dear friend who I've often turned to with many of the questions I've mentioned in this speech for the first student perspective.
Thank you so much, Sadie, for your warm welcome, for that introduction, and just for everything. Querida comunidad, dear graduating class, faculty, staff, and beloved guests. That fresh starry night, when you make eye contact with the fellow young-looking human who's picking you up at the Concord station. That first going around the room with introductions, when you realize that all your classmates are coming from different backgrounds, ages, or interests. But besides that is the deep seek for knowledge that binds you together. Or that moment when you receive an email confirming that you got all your classes laid out perfectly, and next term, you're going to be buzzing around with the most exciting peers and faculty to teach you so much more about the things that you're passionate about. Just as in those moments, right now, I feel an overwhelming sense of happiness to be here with you, that it comes from the deep of my guts, all the way up to my spine, to my head, and it just makes me go like this. Being here with you right now couldn't be a sweeter dream. Juntos, interconectados. As I am writing my remarks, I couldn't help but allow my heart to speak. And before I tell you about my family here, I also wanted to thank and tell you a little bit about my roots and my family back home. Thanks to my parents who decided to leave our home country, Chile, and travel to Spain to give us a better future. Without their support and encouragement, we wouldn't have the opportunities and the support and the amazing people that we've met in our lives. Thank you so much for that. And here at COA, the interconnectedness and the togetherness that I was talking to you about is precisely what I learned the most remarkable lesson in these 4 years as a student of human ecology, which is fast to say, but even faster to live. The vulnerability to rely and depend on each other is where we have learned that a strength lies. We have been through a lot together, from Democrats taking back the House to uprisings in Latin America, in Hong Kong, COVID-19, war in Ukraine, and the many continuous wars that are going on. I have seen us come together as a community. I felt this community with the 2019 Chilean social outbreak. Life-changing, world-changing. That is why I came here to COA. However, how do we take these values beyond a precise moment, and how do we carry in them as we navigate the difficulties and the challenges under the systems that we operate? Fair wages, inclusive curriculum, truthful relationship with Wabanaki, as Sadie mentioned, and housing crisis. My heart beats faster now that I say these words, but not of fear or a worry. It beats faster of excitement, because excitement that I know that these are not localized issues. These are global issues that we see happening all around the world. But I graduate so happy and proud of all the work that we have done, and to know for sure that wherever we go, we'll take that work further. And for those students who are here after we leave, I want to remind you that we are a committed type who don't avoid the hardships of building our own major, and who we don't mind using the clothes from someone else from the fruit box. We rather love it, because it somehow helps us define the world we want to live in. Juntos e interconectados. In that vulnerability of reliance of one another is where I want to ask all of you to keep the, is where I want to ask all of you to be there for each other in the hard work of constant growth and healing. And push forward, because that's what we've gone through all these 4 years and all the years that COA has been, the 50 years that we're here celebrating today as well. For those of us living, like on that first starry night, I am so excited to see all the amazing work, creative, truthful, and passionate work that each one of you, each one of us will do. You have proven to be the most inspiring cohort that I could have dreamed of. Thank you for having cared for me and loved me in all the different ways that you have done. And thank you for also having inspired us and guide us through all these different difficult times. I am so grateful to have shared these past 4 years of my life with all of you. And I cannot wait to keep the hard work going to make of this world a more interconnected one. Now, I would like to welcome to the stage the one and only Kandom Hunt.
Thank you. And thank you so much to Izzy for that amazing speech. Very tough act to follow. Hi. I should warn you that my speech today is about turkeys. Where I'm from, in the southeast of Virginia, turkeys only really exist in the meat section of the grocery store. When I first visited Maine, I was so struck by these patriotic birds. They walked across the street with no care to cars or anyone passing by. And I was just so struck by this freedom that I felt that these birds possessed. And in the traditional public school I attended here in the United States, there were many ways in which I didn't feel free. I had been sold this notion of a career where I would leave home and go away to college to prove that I deserved it. And after I had proved my worth and graduated from college, I would start my career and go on to live a hopefully contented life where I made enough money to cover my basic needs and go on vacation once a year if I was lucky. And if I was lucky, after years of grinding at this career, one day I could get rich. The American dream, if you will. And this dream was compelling to me. It promised security, the ability to make much more money than I was raised on, and some bizarre sense of pride. But even as a child, I knew that this came with a cost. I didn't want to climb a corporate ladder. I wanted to paint, to write, and to be able to live off of doing what I loved. I wanted to be free, like the turkeys. And 2 weeks ago, I was having brunch, and I went down to the Beatrix Fairden Garden, and I saw a turkey sunning itself in the grass. When I came closer, it got up and paced to the shade, and in its spot were 12 tiny chicks, which I then learned were called poults, as in poultry. And watching these babies run around the garden, gently cluck as they poked among the tulips, I was hit with a paternal sense of fear, of imagining these sweet, tiny little birds in my childhood freezers, shrink wrapped in plastic and glistening in the fluorescent lighting. And I was struck with the sense that in some ways we were those turkeys. That's what we had been sold as a dream, a world where we're secure in our plastic. And we have bright light to make the bumpy skin look like jewels, but we still sacrifice our freedom for this security. And I realized that really, I never wanted to buy this dream. And I didn't want to sell that dream to those turkeys. And I didn't want to sell that dream to my children at a cost which I am nearly certain they can't pay, and at a cost with which the majority of people cannot pay and have to, in order for the few to have a rags to riches stories. If I were to follow what my high school math analysis teacher diligently told me was the only path, I would perhaps be graduating today with a business degree, entering corporate America, and ready to knock down my coworkers for a promotion and overworking myself for a bonus. And I wake up every day grateful that I am not doing that. I wake up every day grateful that I'm graduating with a human ecology degree. I am grateful that I discovered and chose COA, which has taught me both how to earn money from the things that I love and also allowed me to investigate this myth of the American dream and why it is both so compelling and destructive. And because I've been able to do those things, I can see a future where I can pursue the things I love, something I think every person sitting here and every person, period, deserves. And I surmise that, like the turkeys in freezers across America, the American dream is dead, if it were ever alive. At least the American dream that I grew up with, and the American dream that likely many of you did as well. And I would encourage you to find, rather than sadness, bitterness, or cynicism, a certain amount of glee at this realization, and a certain amount of glee that there can be something better. And most of all, I'm hopeful for a future where, with minds like all of these about to walk across this stage, we can build something much, much better in its place. Thank you. And I would like to introduce Taibatu Bintu Adamu Garba to give you your next student perspective. Thank you again.
Thank you, Camden, for that beautiful speech. Friends and family, staff and faculty, esteemed guests, and especially class of 2022. I was very moved when I was told that I've been selected to give a student perspective. So I feel honored to be standing on the stage here. Now, many of you might be wondering, what is it that she's wearing? So this is a Fulani women's traditional clothing. Fulani is an ethnic group of nomadic people from West Africa. Fulani people's values and identities are reflected through 3 core principles that they live by. And as a Fulani, when thought of our time at COA, I saw these 3 core principles reflected in us, the graduating class, and especially in our lived experiences together. First, Fulani people are adventurous. They like to explore new places and learn from them. We, class of 2022, are adventurous too, by nature. We chose the path of exploring ourselves and the world through the lens of human ecology. By self-designing our majors and seizing opportunities for new learning. Whether that meant taking a class of a subject new to us, or performing in front of an audience for the first time, or traveling to Mexico for the Yucatan program. We kept our love for learning, practiced courage, and remained persistent. And that is what we're here to celebrate today. Adventures leads to challenges, and when they arise, the Fulani people face them head on and work to overcome them. This is the second principle I found we have in common. Class of 2022, we've also faced tremendous challenges over the past 4 years at COA. From adjusting to a completely new place, and for many of us, an entire culture, new culture, to being forced to reimagine our entire lives when COVID-19 hit. We faced these challenges head on and found creative ways to live through them. We've created study sessions on Zoom. We've made culture show happen virtually. Who would have thought? We stood together through the ups and downs and supported one another. The third principle is that the Fulani people live with a generous heart, sharing the little things they have with others. For example, being herders, when someone in the Fulani community does not have a herd, a single cow is given to them to care for until it gives birth. And once it gives birth, the cow is then returned to the original owner, and the person gets to keep the calf and build their own herd. The value of sharing, an inherent part of the Fulani culture, has also been an essential part of our culture at COA. We have shared the little things and the big ones. Sometimes it meant a meal but often it's been more than that. We've shared our fears, hopes, and dreams during late night conversations. We've shared our cultures during Cultural Week, our talent during open mic, and our passions and hard work reflected through our senior projects. But most importantly, we've made it to this day because others have also shared many things with us. And I would like to take a moment to thank them. Thank you first and foremost to our families, our friends and peers who shaped us into the beings we are today. Thank you to the Davis United World Scholars Program, without which I and many of the class of 2022 wouldn't be here today. Thank you to our incredible COA staff and faculty for supporting us throughout our journeys. And finally, sorry, I forgot a little bit. Just as we have received this support from others, it is my hope that we, the graduating class, as we leave COA today and go into different directions, we also find ways to give back and make a difference in the world. And finally, I want to personally thank you, class of 2022, for being who you are on the best and worst days. In all shapes and forms, your work, compassion, and dedication have been an inspiration and made it possible for me to be standing here today. I am very, very proud of each and every one of us. Thank you. I would like to now welcome up to the stage Jasper White, Reagan Greer, and Sadie Cooley for the presentation of the senior gifts class, of the senior class gift, sorry.
Thank you so much for that speech, Tebatu. That was so beautiful. And I would like to follow the third thing we share in common, in that we are sharing some more with the school. Our final thing that we will share with the school is that these wonderful people have gathered over $250 among ourselves and our fundraising activities to put towards the purchase of a wooden bench swing, which we will install behind turrets as the senior class of 2022 gift in dedication to the wonderful Sarah Slook Luke.
Sarah Luke has served as the Dean of Student Life, as the Dean of Student Life at this college for 18 years. If her career was a person, it would be able to legally drink in Europe and enroll at COA as a student. We'd like to thank you for all you've given to this school in the past 18 years. You've been unendingly kind, thoughtful, considerate, funny, and above all, just one of the people that shows up the most for our students. And many of us have really wonderful memories of the ways that you've shown up for us and of the joy that you've shared with our community. And many before us have those memories as well. This is just a small token of gratitude for an immense gift that you've given us. But a big thank you.
We would also like to acknowledge and extend our sincere appreciation for other staff and faculty members who will be retiring or moving on to something else after this year. So Marie Stivers, Pam Mitchell, Judy Allen, Ann Kozak, Donna McFarland, Miller Doherty. Thank you all for your long-term dedication to COA and to its students. I'm getting there. I'm not done. Diane, thank you. Diane, Jake, Renee Duncan, Jake Totten, yeah. Amanda Mogridge, thank you also for all of your care and your commitment to this community. You're graduating with us, and we hope that you celebrate as hard as we will tonight. Thank you. We also just want to acknowledge Howdy Houghton, who was a long-term night watchman at COA, and who his generosity, his wealth of knowledge and experience, and his humor really touched a lot of people who are here today. And we just want to say thank you, because the people that you study and work with tend to be the people you spend the most time with. They kind of become like a second family. And so thank you all for being a second family to us during our time here. It's meant a lot.
We would now like to welcome to the stage Molly Pifko to introduce our commencement speaker. Molly's artistry and dedication to learning has touched us all and moved us just very regularly. Not only her amazing Joni Mitchell covers, but also originals and playwriting skills. So please come up, Molly Pifko.
Hi. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, class of 2022. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and especially thank you to my fellow student speakers. I am so inspired by all of you. I'm so proud to share this stage with you, and I'm so proud to call you classmates and friends. Our keynote speaker today, Dr. Jennifer Finney Boylan, is a writer, professor, and advocate for LGBTQ rights. She is the author of 18 books, both fiction and nonfiction, and in 2003, her memoir was the first best-selling work by a transgender American. It is easy to list off these accomplishments and many others, but it's harder to fully articulate the impact that Jennifer's writings had on me personally, and why it is so meaningful that she is joining us here today. In a recent TED Talk, which I encourage you all to watch, Jennifer recounts the story of taking the ferry from Maine to Nova Scotia, listening to the song Early Morning Rain. She sings, "I'm a long way from home and I miss my loved ones so, in the early morning rain with no place to go." Looking back at my time at COA, many of the questions that I keep coming back to often involve stories and the spaces or landscapes that hold them. Who belongs in what spaces? How do they come to belong there? And how do we each find or make a place where we belong, where we feel truly at home? I believe that an aptitude shared by novelists and human ecologists alike is that both require a certain strength of imagination to envision the crossings and journeys that we all take, whether we are crossing disciplines, borders, or genders. At our best, we are a kind of map makers. We keenly observe the place we are at currently, and then we imagine our way towards the place we need to go. And if we find ourselves lost, if we are a long way from home with no place to go, the stories of others can be our aids to navigation. As a young queer woman, even one who grew up in an incredibly supportive environment, I needed to see and hear stories of other queer lives before I could ever imagine a future for myself. This is why I'm so disheartened by the bans on LGBTQ books and conversations that are happening across the US right now, and so glad to hear writers and activists like Jennifer speaking out against them. We are living in a precarious moment in history, a moment that requires great acts of imagination, courage, and empathy. Fortunately, I stand here today before a class who exemplifies these attributes, and I have the pleasure of welcoming to the stage someone who uniquely embodies them. So it is my incredible honor to now welcome Dr. Jennifer Finney Boylan. Thank you for all your work, and thank you for being here with us today.
Thanks, Molly. That was amazing. I forgot about that story. But I'm. It's funny that Darren has put me up at the Atlantic Ocean side, up the street, and you look out the window from the room that I'm in, and there's the pier, where I guess it doesn't run anymore. The ferry to Nova Scotia. It does. It will. Okay. So that's where I left for Nova Scotia, thinking that I was not gonna survive, really. I mean, that's when I went up there kind of to take my leave. And it's from that pier, I was looking out the window this morning, and it's very dramatic, I'm sure. Well, thanks for making me feel so welcome. President Collins, Darren, trustees, students, and staff, thank you for the honor of letting me speak to you today. It is a precious gift, and I'm sincerely grateful. When Darren first asked me if I'd speak to you this morning, I said I'd be delighted, but first I wanted to have just a short conversation with him about the college and about what you've all been through the last 2 or 6 years, so that I might have a more intimate understanding of the current campus climate. So we scheduled a call, but on the afternoon we were supposed to speak, though I got a text, sorry, Jenny, can't talk right now, I'm putting out fires. Well, over the course of my life, of my career, I've known a lot of college presidents and deans, and they often use that phrase, sorry, putting out fires. A few hours later, though, when Darren called me back, I came to understand, no, he'd been putting out an actual fire up at the Blue Nose Inn, along with a team of College of the Atlantic volunteer firefighters. He even sent me a photo of the COA fire squad, their faces covered in soot and a mixture of exhaustion and pride still visible on their features. It shouldn't have amazed me, but it really did. I mean, there they were, student firefighters helping to save their community. I mean, is there a better metaphor for what the College of the Atlantic is all about? And is there any better argument for the urgency of this college's mission at this moment in history? Because the world right now, as you all know, is indeed a dumpster fire. And what the world needs now is indeed a generation dedicated to putting those fires out. And by a dumpster fire, let me be specific. I'm talking about the dumpster fires of climate change and global warming. I'm talking about the dumpster fires of institutional racism and voter suppression. I'm talking about the dumpster fires of turning back the clock on the human rights of LGBTQ+ people and trans and non-binary people in particular. I'm talking about the dumpster fire of taking away a woman's right to control her own body. I'm talking about the dumpster fire of lies and misinformation and conspiracy that led to an attempt to actually prevent the certification of a fair and democratic election. So, it is no secret then that the world into which you are graduating today is a world in peril. And so I thought that this this afternoon, I might share with you some thoughts briefly about why that would be. What is it about this particular moment in history that has left us all every morning feeling as if we are waking into a 3-alarm blaze? Well, there are a lot of reasons, I think, actually, and historians and political scientists are probably better prepared than I am to do a deep dive into many of those issues. But as a writer and as an activist, I think that a lot of the trouble right now can be traced to a simple human aversion to accept change. And change is something I've thought a lot about. As a transgender American, I can tell you about what it means to go from one part of your life to the next. Although in my own life, the biggest change was not going from male to female, but going from a person who had a secret to a person without one, a person burdened by a private sense of shame to a person who was able to live her life out loud with pride. Gender isn't the only thing that's changed in my life. An even more profound change happened half a dozen years ago when I lost my hearing. And I went from a person who had never given serious thought to what it might be like to move through the world as a disabled person to someone who, well, I can tell you, thinks about it all the time. I still remember the morning I called my wife after getting my final diagnosis, the one in which my doctor told me that my hearing was mostly gone after a single night standing a little too close to a fire alarm that happened to go off. This is my wife, Dee Dee, I'm talking about, the woman to whom I've now been married 34 years, 12 as husband and wife, 22 as wife and wife. I told her my news, and then I started sobbing into the phone right there on the streets of New York City. I said, "I'm so sorry you have to be married to somebody like me." She said, "Jenny, I stayed with you through the gender thing. You really think I divorced you because you have hearing aids?" It was a beautiful morning in New York City. All around me were the sounds of chirping birds, the sounds of shouting children, the sounds of honking taxis. I said, "What?" Ha ha ha. I also remember the night almost 20 years before that when I told my mom that I was transgender. I was pretty sure that Mom, 85 years old, Republican, conservative, and an evangelical Christian, wasn't going to view my coming out as an occasion for celebration. It was pretty scary, actually. But the time had come for me to spill the beans. So that Sunday night, I poured her a very hearty gin and tonic. Then I sat down with her and I said, "Mom, there's something I need to tell you." And that's when I told her I was trans, that I'd known I was supposed to be female since I was a child, but I was afraid of telling her the truth all these years because I was afraid of disappointing her, that I was afraid she wouldn't love me anymore. Right about there is the moment I started crying and found it impossible to go on. And that is when my 85-year-old conservative, Republican, evangelical Christian mother got up out of her chair and sat down next to me and put her arms around me and said, "I would never turn my back on my child. I have always loved you. I always will love you, no matter who you are." And I said to her, "Okay, Mom, but what's going to happen when everyone finds out I'm your daughter now? Won't that be an embarrassment? A scandal?" She said, "Well, frankly, yes." And then she said, "But I will adjust." And then she quoted 1 Corinthians. "These three abide, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love." She held me in her arms and wiped away the tears, and she said, "Love will prevail." And in my own life, that has mostly been true, although there have been other times when other things have prevailed too. Ignorance, violence, loss. There are a lot of reasons why the forces of darkness seem to be in ascendance these days. economic and racial injustice, the failure of some of our schools, the upheavals and inequities hardwired into capitalism itself. But really, at the heart of a lot of trouble is that inability to accept change, a refusal to accept that most things don't last forever, and in many cases shouldn't last forever. It is hard to let go of the way things have been, but when we face injustice, we have to prevail. And make no mistake, to greet the world with love doesn't mean that you sit around with a dopey smile on your face while the world burns around you. For love to prevail, it is necessary to greet the world with fierceness, to push back against injustice with both relentlessness and joy, wisdom and ferocity. Those who would turn back the clock to a time when women were denied the right to control their own bodies, to a time when LGBTQ people had to live in the shadows, to a time when people of color could be denied the right to vote. These people need to understand that they will have a fight on their hands. But that those of us that are engaged in this work are motivated not by fear, but hope, not by intolerance, but justice, not by hate, but love. As we think about a transformed world, or the hope of one, it is also worth thinking about what it is we hope will not change, what things we hope will remain, and not just faith, hope, and love, although admittedly those three are a good start. But even as we morph and evolve over the years, some things remain constant. So it is worth considering what it is about you that will remain the same, even as time has its way with you. My wife and I ask these questions of ourselves all the time. If you're with someone as long as Dee Dee and I have known each other, 44 years now, in fact, since I first saw her on stage at Wesleyan, in fact, in a production of David Mamet's Sexual Perversity in Chicago. I don't know. You will often look at the person you love and wonder about the changes time brings, because let's face it, if you've been married for 30 or 40 years and your marriage is still exactly the same as it was when you got married, your marriage has probably failed. If you are exactly the same person at age 60 as you were when you were 20, you've probably failed at the very real challenge of accepting the most important change there is, the change of self. And if your country is exactly the same place in 2020 as it was in 1776 and has exactly the same rules as it did then, your country has probably failed. I think that's called originalism, actually. Well, all of this brings us to the philosophical puzzle known as the ship of Theseus. Oh, I'm sorry, I just dozed off for a second. The philosophical puzzle known as the ship of Theseus. Okay, look, goes like this. Theseus, great sailor. On his ship, he sails the seas, but as the years go by, he replaces the parts of the ship as they wear out. The sails when they tear, the deck planks when they warp. After, let's say 4 years, everything on that ship has been replaced from stem to stern. And yet someone else all this time has been saving the original pieces as they're removed and replaced and assembled them all right there in the harbor. And so as the puzzle goes, the question is, which is the true ship of Theseus? The one that Theseus originally built or the new one with all the new parts? If you're in an intro philosophy course, you can have great fun tossing this question around. And some of the mystery of the question has to do with what we mean when we say true. What is a true ship? What is a true person? For that matter, what is a true country? In the end, usually, the way this koan is often resolved is with the conclusion that the true ship of Theseus is the ship that Theseus sails. A much shorter version of the same question is in the story of the old New England farmer boasting about the longevity of his shovel. Best shovel ever, he says. I've replaced the blade twice and the handle 3 times. best shovel lasts forever. So this is a day when, in the heart of personal change, you can also ask yourself, what about me is the thing that is constant? What is the thing that lasts forever? What remains the same even as everything else about me evolves? And my answer to that question is that the thing that is constant is soul. I don't mean soul in a religious sense, although if that works for you, fine. But what I mean is that there is something in you that contains your most profound human essence, something precious and amazing, something you have always known, something powerful and eternal. In his great play, Our Town, one of Thornton Wilder's characters says, "We all know that something is eternal. It ain't houses, and it ain't names, and it ain't earth, and it ain't even the stars. Everybody knows in their bones that something is eternal, and that something has to do with human beings. All of the greatest people ever lived have been telling us that for 5,000 years, and yet you'd be surprised how people are always losing hold of it. There's something way down deep that's eternal about every human being." And speaking of eternal, I said earlier that today is a day of change for the members of this class, but it is also a day of change for your parents and for those who have served as parents for you. If you see them later today shedding tears, maybe forgive them and consider that they may not only be shedding tears for you. Today is a day when they might find themselves like Kurt Vonnegut's Billy Pilgrim, come unstuck in time. And considering the changes that have come to them, they will be watching you cross the stage, handing each other flowers, perhaps, but they will also be remembering when they were the ones graduating from college, or who knows, perhaps a time even more distant than that. My daughter graduated from Vassar a few years ago, and on that day, even as she took her degree in hand, it was impossible for me not to remember standing in an OR 22 years earlier as a baby's cry filled the room, and my wife, Dee Dee, light radiating from her face, looked up and said, "That's amazing." And it is amazing. The passage of time, an occasion for joy and celebration, and sure, a few tears as well at how swiftly our days pass by. But as Gandalf said, "I will not say do not weep, for not all tears are an evil." President Collins. Trustees, faculty, and staff, I thank you for the great honor you have bestowed upon me. Members of the class of 22, we hope you'll put some fires out, and also that others will be lit by the torch of your imaginations. We cannot wait to see what and who you will change into next. We wish you joy and Godspeed in all the adventures that now begin. May love in your lives always prevail. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Jenny. I now have the great pleasure to present an honorary Master of Philosophy degree in Human Ecology to Dr. Jennifer Finney Boylan. By the power vested in me as chair of the Board of Trustees of the College of the Atlantic, it's my privilege to confer upon Jenny the honorary degree of Master of Philosophy in Human Ecology. Her name will be joined to the distinguished group of honorary degree recipients. Thank you, Jenny. We're delighted to honor your contributions to human ecology.
I have the privilege of introducing Dr. Alexis Pauline Gumbs, a queer, Black, troublemaker, an author, artist, mover and shaker who's been nominated by the entire COA community also to receive an honorary Master's of Philosophy in Human Ecology. Dr. Gums.
I am so honored to be with you all. You don't know this about me, but I love graduations. I'm the type of person who would sneak into graduations of people I don't know so I can cheer for them and clap for them. So this is basically the best day ever because I get to sit here and scream. And I just wanted to offer, in complete agreement with the fact that on this day of change in your lives, you inspire all of us to remember the ongoing work of growth and transformation that we can do on any day of our lives. And these two poems are an offering, a blessing for each of us, but especially you all, but for each of us. The first one is Kuruman, who is a figure from Carib mythology, who was a person who became a star and who causes the ebb and flow of the ocean. This is what happened from a wish to become nothing. I became everything. I became pull. I became the only thing we did not choose. I became gravity. This is what happened in the dream where I was everything. I became ocean, I became deep, I became heaven, I became sleep, I became what peace you could imagine. This is what happened. I became star, I became morning, I emerged far enough away that I could see you. This is the wish. A desert of salt, wide, and that you cross it. This is the wish, a sky, black, and that it holds you. This is the lesson. Earth moves and moves and moves. And one more in honor of the snake, the piñón, the anaconda constellation. Train me to let go every skin I made to hide in. Teach me how to slide away. Show me how you move across the land, the sky without one hand, foot reaching fin. How can I live without holding on? If in the Garden of Eden, they dressed themselves in leaves, maybe it was not because they were ashamed. Maybe it was the closest they could get to scales. If I could surrender to renewal, if I could unlearn my armor, if I could not know myself as skin and give who I now am back into earth, somewhere underneath, feathers would grow. Soon enough, I know that I would fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. I now have the great pleasure to present an honorary Master of Philosophy degree in Human Ecology to Dr. Alexis Pauline Gums. By the power vested in me as chair of the Board of Trustees of College of the Atlantic, it's my privilege to confer upon Alexis the honorary degree of Master of Philosophy in Human Ecology. Her name will be joined to the distinguished group of honorary degree recipients. Thank you, Alexis. We're delighted to honor your contributions to human ecology.
Ms. Chairwoman, the graduate committee, the academic deans, and faculty of College of the Atlantic enthusiastically recommend that the following students receive the degree of Master of Philosophy in Human Ecology. These students have completed their coursework with insight, originality, and breadth of vision. I'd like to first call Eleonora Rose Gilchrist to the podium. Second, I'd like to call Robert Haskell to the stage.
By the power vested in me as Chair of the Board of Trustees of College of the Atlantic, it's my pleasure to confer the degree of Master of Philosophy in Human Ecology to Eleonora and Robert, and welcome them to the ranks of the college's alumnus with all attendant rights, privileges, and responsibilities.
Ms. Chairwoman, the candidates who will come before you today include students who have completed all the requirements for graduation, and those students who will absolutely, without a doubt, finish their research projects in the summer or the autumn. The academic deans, registrar, and faculty of College of the Atlantic enthusiastically recommend that the following students receive the degree of Bachelor of Arts in Human Ecology. The flowers that the candidates will present to each other symbolize the experience and affection they have shared at College of the Atlantic. And I'd like to first call Judith Orseth Tunstad.
Taibatu Bintu Adamo Garba.
Hali Ela Arno.
Mimi Aziz.
Henry Barkey Burkan.
Pietro Cascia.
Bailey Sharon.
Jay Clark.
M. Como.
Galena Frances Morgan Kilmany Conrad.
Leo Aleph Cook.
Sadie Patricia Cooley.
Kiernan Matthew Crow.
Jessica Cummings.
Levi Curtis. Sarah Sear. Lautis da Silva Carmo.
Emma Dong.
Ruvon DeGroff.
Isaac Dion.
Tina Alese Chupa.
Vera Latif Fishman Reshef.
Sage Cedar Fuller.
Iris Fenn Gillingham.
Gabby Gordon Fox.
The wonderful Reagan Victoria Eaton Gray.
the one and only Erica Marie Gross.
Addison Morgan Gruber.
Ai Hashimoto.
Maggie Hood.
Addie Huckins. Camden Nathaniel Hunt.
Nora Barrett Hyman.
Jillian Roisin Igo. Millie Jacoby. Ronan Johnston McWilliams.
Sophie Joyce.
Hara Lastra. Grace Leary. Tristan Boyd Philbrook Lewis.
Zaya Lorio.
Hallie Martinez. Ryan McGraw.
Isabel Messerschmidt.
Isidora Liliana Munoz Segoya.
Gisela Morda Nutrione.
Mi querida amiga, Madison Thayer O'Brien.
Benjamin James Panulo.
Joe Leanne Parker.
Alexa Parkinson.
Alexander Percy.
Molly Faye Pivko.
Wesley Reason. Nicholas Russell.
Johnny Harlow Robinson.
Sophia Sachente.
Morgan Sonsier.
Sophie Schubert. Anna Mae Sheehan.
Danilo Shivalov.
Katuta Sichilongo.
Purva Singh.
The very beautiful Maisie Gray Smollett.
Catherine Grace Snyder. Lundy Azalina Stowe.
Emma Bakeman Strebe.
Paloma Tejero Caballo.
Molly Marie Tucker.
Brenna Elizabeth Van Steenbergen.
Juanica Huachque Disa Lahiro.
Ellie White.
Jasper John White.
Tess Vegso Wilson.
Morgan Elizabeth Jankowski.
Last but certainly not least, Aaliyah Bernadette Elizabeth Zweig.
I have to say that's quite emotional. And then added on top of that, to hug, not to hug, shake hands. But here's the best part of the day. By the power vested in me as chair of the Board of Trustees of College of the Atlantic, it's my pleasure to confer the degree Bachelor of Arts of Human Ecology on all seniors graduating today and welcome them to the ranks of the college's alumnus with the attendant rights, privileges, and responsibilities. I'd also like to give a heartfelt thank you to Jenny Boylan and to Lexis Gums. And to all of you for being here and being part of our community. On behalf of the Board of Trustees and the entire College of the Community, I extend the heartiest congratulations to the class of 2022. Following the recessional, we'd love to see every single one of you at a reception in the Newland Gardens. Thank you.